All right, man. Ready?
Good.
What's going on, and welcome back to Kickin' It With. My name is Zac Holcomb. Today, we've got episode 39 with Matt Young. What's going on, Matt? How are you, man?
And how are you?
Doing awesome. Thanks for, I know we bumped into each other at the Go Eco ribbon cutting for the Lenore County Chamber of Commerce. That is a shameless plug we did not get paid for, but, you know, my good friend Jock said,
absolutely.
May as well, you know, why not?
He was like the first friend I made when I moved to town.
Really?
Yeah. Interesting. 2014.
Oh, nice. When did he get here? Do you know? I think 10
He
or
was
12?
living in Greenville at that time,
Okay.
and then moved down here, I think maybe the next year, maybe like 2015 or early 2016.
Right on. Oh, there you go. Shameless plug, Jock. You're welcome.
Yeah, because he was here when Hurricane Matthew hit in 2016 because his oldest son is also named Matthew, like me.
Yeah.
And so we had that, hey, there's a hurricane coming. It's named after us.
It's a great one, yeah.
And it was 2016, so I know he was here by then.
Gotcha. All right, very cool. Interesting.
It's crazy how I remember things like that.
Well, you're a historian, so you should technically be very gifted in remembering.
Yeah, the dates come naturally.
Yeah, numbers, dates,
Yes.
history. That's very
but not so much math. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's like an interesting myth, you could say.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Well, I'm super excited to have you on. As you know, obviously, we have covered some of the history of Kingston / Kinston on this podcast once or twice before.
Yes.
And then you're one of the people I've been meaning to reach out to, and then we ran into each other at the ribbon cutting, and you walked over and you're like, hey, I would love to come on and chat about the history. And I was like, yes, this is God sent. This is why I was here at this event today, was so we could put this together.
Awesome.
Super excited. Well, cool. So some of the things, if you don't know, we've got like episode 9.5. We had Noah Justice on. We talked about some stuff. And we've talked about different miscellaneous things of the history of Kinston / Kingston. And, you know, some of us are hashtagging both names in our posts on Facebook. What do you think about that?
I mean, anything that gets you more posts, right? Anything that gets you more views, more clicks, more likes, more discussion, more comments, because the way the algorithms are with social media, it's the more engagement you have, the higher it's going to show on somebody's feed.
Yep. Yeah.
That's all it is.
So it's just a little teeny tiny simple hack. For those of you that don't know, a little background information on that. Largely Stacey Heath was like a big proponent of, if you're going to, he did the kind of the research and the math of like, if you hashtag Kinston, there's not as many posts nearly as hashtag Kingston, obviously because of Kingston, Jamaica.
Kingston, New York.
Kingston, New York, as well. Yeah, there is another
towns.
Yeah, right. There's a Kinston, Alabama.
Yes.
But
and it's very small. You think we're small.
They're
very small.
Yeah, I think like 1/10. Like it's a teeny tiny little town.
It's small.
It's like a traffic light town, yeah.
Maybe $2 generals, and that's it.
Yeah, not 8 or 12. We're big time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. That is so funny. Well, yeah, so, you know, if you don't know, we've been like trying to, and some of us, and I think a lot of people have really kind of gotten hip to it, of like throwing up the extra hashtag. Like, you already hashtagged at Kinston, you may as well just hashtag Kingston too. Like, and now it's like a funny joke. Like, anyone and everyone's doing it. And like every time we see it, it makes me like, it brings cheer to my heart.
Yes.
Like, because if you can get it in front of, there's, I think some in the neighborhood of like 1.4-ish million posts on Facebook with the Kingston tag, and it's like sub 100,000 with the Kinston tag. So like you said,
why not do both?
Why not? It doesn't hurt.
A couple extra keystrokes, no big deal.
Yeah, and it's history. We're just sharing the history.
Right.
So I wanted to bring you on and kind of hear what you got to share with us about all of this fun, fancy stuff from an actual historian. I'm not a historian.
Disclaimer.
Neither is Stacy. You know, we jokingly pay attention to these things, but like this is like your jam. It's like it's what you do.
Yeah, professionally. So not only am I the manager for the CSS News Museum, which is downtown Kinston, I'm also the site manager for the Governor Richard Caswell Memorial.
Okay. And
you can't talk about the founding of this town without talking about Richard Caswell.
Okay.
He is the reason that Kinston is here. He was born in Maryland, and you know, like both of us, not a native North Carolinian, but he came to North Carolina. He started off in New Bern, and he came at a fairly young age, and he came with his brother. And they were basically sent here because North Carolina had a lot of land and not a lot of people yet.
Right.
And it was the promise of more land that really drove him and his family to come here. His father died when he was fairly young, and so it was, hey, you've got to do something with your life now if you want to keep the name going.
Right.
And so he moves to North Carolina, moves to New Bern, and starts basically a trade as a surveyor, which, of course, when you've got a lot of land that you got to look at, being a surveyor is pretty good. And it came for two reasons. One, as a surveyor, you get to kind of see the land before anybody else does, really, in general. And so he's able to find this very nice piece of land here that has a nice river running through it, a nice high bluff on one side, which is where the town is now. And, the other advantage that he has is that he gets to travel with that job. He gets to meet a lot of people.
Yep. And
one of the people that he meets kind of becomes his benefactor. He kind of becomes an apprentice. And I'm struggling to remember the top of his name off my head, or his name off the top of my head. But his last name you'll find familiar. He was a McElwain.
Oh. Huh. Like the street.
Like the street.
Interesting.
And so he ends up marrying his daughter.
Gotcha.
And the McElwain becomes a Caswell, and that's his first wife. She has his oldest son and dies, like childbirth, child-related stuff.
About what time was this?
This is going to be in the 1750s, that kind of around that time period.
Yeah, so you would have things like that happen fairly...
Pretty commonly, yeah, maybe even 1740s. I'm trying to, again, doing it without my notes in front of me, so it's kind of off the top of my head.
Yep.
But at that time, he is rising through the ranks. He becomes a surveyor on his own. He reads law, so he becomes, somewhat of an expert in law and land. And he is appointed to the colonial legislature. So he takes a seat in the colonial legislature, kind of representing this area in the legislature. And it's still not a town yet. And he actually puts a bill through in the 1760s, I think, to establish this area and name it Kingston. And he did that after King George. Okay. That's who he was, naming the town for in honor of the monarch. Personally, he ends up marrying again. This time, his wife is a heritage.
Does it potentially have 2 R's?
Huh. With 2 R's.
Interesting.
Right. It has several more children.
Right, okay.
So if you look at how the town of Kinston is laid out, you have King Street and Queen Street. That's, obviously the main thoroughfares you're naming after the king and the queen.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, yeah.
So north and south on either side of that are streets named after his wives.
Nice tip of the hat.
You can look at the town and know where the original boundaries of the town were by the street names.
Okay.
You have North Street. That was the northern boundary of the original town layout.
Okay. So, like, what was incorporated?
What was initially laid out?
Okay.
As the town,
just surveyed out.
Yeah, as the town proper. North Street was the end of the. It's not really municipality, but we can call it that for lack of a better word to use.
Okay.
And then you have South Street. That was the southern border.
Okay.
You have East Street, which runs north-south. That was the eastern border. The western border was the river.
That makes it easy.
That is your town of Kingston.
Okay. I had someone tell me once that Kingston was actually a town that was located over across the river and down 70 a little ways. Do you know about that?
No, that would have been here. Kingston would have been here. There were other little small, and it was not even really towns.
Or a township.
Yeah, or crossroads or something like that. There were several small settlements in and around here, but no, this is Kingston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. There you go. Officially. about as official as you can be right there.
and the reason it's changed, well, first of all, a little bit more about Caswell. He is involved in the regulator uprising, but he's on the other side. You know anything about the War of the Regulation?
Nope.
Okay, so in the backwoods of North Carolina, okay, Tryon is the governor.
Okay. Yep.
And he's got his New Bern home. But in order to build the palace, Tryon's palace, as the governor's home, he needs money. So he gets it from imposing basically unfair high taxes on the colonial citizens of North Carolina. The ones who are further out in the frontier and the backcountry, mostly Scots-Irish, who have to deal with Native Americans basically on a daily basis, they're the frontier settlers. They're the ones that are hacking it out of the wilderness, making their own homes, hunting for their food. They're miles and miles away from their nearest neighbor or civilization, as we would call it. They're the ones that have to pay these taxes. And a lot of them are pretty pissed off about it.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
And Tryon gets the local sheriffs to try to enforce this as a tax collection. They end up tarring and feathering sheriffs. They end up murdering some. There's violence and unrest in places like Hillsborough. And so the governor says, enough, we're going to send a militia out to enforce the law. Caswell is made a colonel in that militia.
Okay.
And they end up fighting a battle at Alamance, was Alamance Courthouse at the time. It's not there anymore, but it's also a state historic site, much like Noose or Caswell is. They fight a battle at Alamance Courthouse. The Tryon side is victorious. The regulators are disbanded. Several of them are hanged for treason. And the rest of them are kind of made to swear an oath to not rise up against the king, not rise up against the colony again, which would come to haunt them 10 years later when the rebellion is starting against King George through the Halifax Resolves and the beginnings of the American Revolution in North Carolina. They would find themselves allied with the British, who they had fought not 10 years, I mean, in some cases, less than 5 years before, in the early 1770s. They were fighting against him. Now they have to fight for him because they swore the oath. Right. And a lot of them held strong to that oath that, hey, we will not fight.
Yeah, word was bond, like big time.
Exactly right.
Time, yeah.
Caswell, in that 5 or 6 years between Alamance and the fight against the War of the Regulation and the American Revolution, has a change of heart. We don't know how. We don't know why, but he becomes one of the leaders of North Carolina's independence movement. And Richard Caswell is elected the first governor of the independent North Carolina, rebelling against the crown.
Gotcha. When was that, roughly?
1775, 1776.
So right there.
Right there at the very beginning. The Halifax Resolves are passed in April, and basically they say that North Carolina, along with the others, needs to be independent from Great Britain. Richard Caswell is nominated and goes to the very first Continental Congress, which is held in Philadelphia in 1774. And they are the ones that are making the petition to the king to stop these taxes and stop these burdensome regulations that they're passing, and no taxation without representation and things like that. And Caswell was there. And he's the one that agreed, yes, these should go. He does not go back to the Second Continental Congress, which is the one in 1776 that declares independence.
Okay, so
he's there, in 1775,
Sure.
and they declare independence in 76.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one was in 74?
75. So I'm sorry, it's 1775
Okay.
for the First Continental Congress.
Were they both in 17?
No, the second one was in 76.
And that was when they did
that was when they declared
big deal.
independence. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Interesting.
So Caswell was there. And you have other people, people like John Adams, who, is a pretty familiar name, who was not known for giving out compliments. In his diary, in his letters between him and his wife, he actually comments that Caswell is a very, very good debater. He's a man to be trusted, a man to be respected.
Okay.
Which is pretty high praise coming from John Adams.
Yeah, a person that doesn't.
And it's our own, Kinston's very own Richard Caswell that he's talking about.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's so cool, dude. I didn't know any of that. I'm learning a ton already.
So we've actually got a little museum. It's open on Fridays and Saturdays. Fridays 10 to 2, Saturdays 10 to 4 at the Richard Caswell Memorial. And Richard Caswell is actually buried there.
Really?
So they did a bunch of archaeology 15 years ago, 20 years ago now. It was the early 2000s. And they dug at his grave. They only found the bottom of his casket. Everything else had pretty much been over 200 years, had pretty much gone away. And because it's on the river or so very close to the river, they think that the water table, rising and falling probably, and the fact that he wasn't embalmed, pretty much ashes to ashes, dust to dust kind of thing. And he was returned to the soil.
Interesting. That's really cool. Where is that site located at for those that
2612 West Vernon Avenue. Okay. It's right next door to the water park.
Okay, so it's where the you'll hammer me for it, but isn't that the CSS Ironclad? Is that where
the noose used to be
there?
Yeah,
that
the noose used to be.
So is that
there.
White House that's kind of right there?
Yeah, that's the museum. There's it's kind of brick and white, a little bit back off. Yeah, and it's a memorial park, so the park is open 24/7, but the building itself is open Fridays and Saturdays.
Very
you
cool.
Can go visit, and it's free. Free little museum about Richard Caswell.
That's sweet. I'm gonna check it out. I haven't been over to that yet.
So
I've driven by it a ton of times.
There's one of his law books in there that we have that's signed by Thomas Jefferson.
No doubt.
Yeah,
that's crazy sweet.
Cool. I mean, he was a contemporary for Jefferson and Adams. I mean, you can really say that he was elected to go, appointed to go to the Second Continental Congress, but at that same time, they said, we want you to be the comptroller, the controller for the state of North Carolina. Basically, he was one of the only people trusted in North Carolina to look after the public's money. And he said, look, I can do that or I can go to Philadelphia, but I can't do both. Right. And they said, North Carolina's money is more important. We'll send other people to Philadelphia.
Gotcha.
But if he had been sent to Philadelphia, he would have been one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
That is freaking cool.
So he is a founding father of our country, and certainly he's the founding father of North Carolina. He is our state's first and third governor.
Really? Yes. That's very cool. Who was second?
Don't remember off the top of my head.
How did that work out? Was he in and then
it was 1 year, believe it or not, 1 year terms.
Oh, okay. So that makes
so he served several 1 year terms in a row, and then he took a step back. And he was actually also a general in the Revolutionary War. Okay. He was the victor at one of the very early fights. It was down closer to Wilmington. It's now it's a battlefield, national battlefield.
Okay.
So he was there, and then he also fought at Camden in South Carolina. Didn't go so well for the Patriots at Camden. The British kind of routed him there. Okay. And he was blamed a lot for North Carolina's failure at that fight. His reputation suffered some, but he wasn't even on the battlefield. He was in his tent because he suffered from what we think now is probably a stroke.
Gotcha.
He was not in the best of health.
A little stressed.
A little bit. I mean, considering you're handling all the state's finances, you're the state governor, you have to keep moving because there are loyalists in this state who are still loyal to the crown. And a patriot governor would fetch a very high price from the British crown if he was captured.
Yeah.
So he was always kind of moving things around.
Yeah, kind of worried.
Yeah, but he had several homes, 2 of which were here in Kinston or in the area. So you could say that for a portion of the American Revolution, that if you want to say where the governor is the capital, Kinston was the capital of North Carolina during the Revolution for several months.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very cool, man. It's so tight. That's so tight. I don't know. I kind of I'm not from here, obviously. If you don't know, I'm from Ohio, but yeah, man,
I'm not from here either. I'm originally from Georgia.
Oh, sweet.
So
so you said you got here in early
2014.
Teens? Okay.
2014 is when I took the job here at News.
Awesome.
So
what made you pick it, man? What was
I was unemployed at the time, so that helps.
Yeah.
Also, my background in museums, my first job in the museum field was at the National Civil War Naval Museum, which is in Georgia.
Very cool.
And so I already had a background in Confederate Navy and ironclads professionally, so I knew quite a bit about it. And I knew how that museum had been developed and what exhibits they had done. And when I started here, the boat was in, and that was about it. They had a plan, but nothing much beyond that.
Gotcha.
And they charged me, they said, your job here is to finish this, to make the museum. Nice. And so between 2014 and last year, 2022, it took 8 years, but we got all the exhibits in, both upstairs and downstairs. The thing is finished.
Nice.
We are done.
That's sweet. That's sweet. What are the times that you can come by that spot?
CSS News Museum is open 5 days a week. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9 to 5, and there is a small admission fee to get in.
Sure. That's sweet. I like the Saturday 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's good hours, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. Man, I had no idea about, like,
good
pretty
stuff.
Much more than half of that.
Yeah,
that's
good
so
stuff.
awesome. So awesome. So when did,
Revolution is kind of when they decided they were going to drop the G.
maybe get out of there.
Yeah, because you're fighting against the king, you're fighting against royalty, you're fighting for what would become a republic. You know, you're fighting for independence from a monarchy. And so you're not going to honor the king by calling your town after him.
Right.
You say, get the hell out of here, drop the G, and we're done.
Yeah.
And so it became Kinston. Even though maps, even as late as the Civil War, which is 85 years later, still had the G in here. You even see some local maps, some maps around the Civil War time, they'll mark, this is the grave of Governor Caswell.
Really?
As a marker on a map. Yeah, we have several maps dating from the Civil War, relating to this area, and on several of them, Caswell's grave shows up.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, like, coming from not being from here, this is like something that Stacy pointed out that kind of really made a lot of sense to me is like in the tongue, it very much is like it's just the native dialect here of people of Kingston, and there's it's kind of almost in the dialect there,
almost,
even though it's been dropped from it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's been officially dropped for at least 150 years, if not longer.
Gotcha.
So, but you have the legacy of it, and the legacy still remains. So, yeah.
Very cool. I want to talk about the seal too. Do you know anything fancy and fun about the?
I really don't. No, I'm sorry, I don't.
We're trying to figure out a whole bunch of things, and we figured out that the unicorn thing comes from Scotland.
Scotland's national animal is the unicorn.
Very interesting. And it was said that only a certain type of person could, back in those times, actually master a unicorn or something along these lines. And I don't really know that much about it, so I don't want to talk out of turn. But
I know the national animal in Scotland is the unicorn. The national animal of England is a lion. Yeah. And of course you see lions all over rural England these days, right?
Oh yeah,
it's
totally.
Very common.
Yeah.
Just like you see the unicorn in Scotland all over the place.
I've seen lots of them.
The national animal in Wales is a dragon.
Okay. See, I get the
dragons.
Because
you see dragons all over the place in Wales too. But it's in their flag, and their flag is really cool. If you've never seen the Welsh flag, it rocks. It's a cool flag. Yeah.
Let's check that out. My grandfather would be super gassed about all this stuff, so he used to always tell us he got older, and this was probably late 90s, early 2000s, and he started doing the whole ancestry thing before that was a thing.
Yeah.
So genealogy got real big into it, and he would come and tell us, he tracked the Holcomb name all the way back to Sir John. He would always tell this story, so that's how I remember it. But so Sir John D. Holcomb, and he was knighted in England by, I can't remember, and I've got it. I'll have to find it and send it to you, man. I got this whole book of stuff that he left.
That's cool.
He left us, and then he left it at my grandma's, and then she passed away, and then they were kind of divvying up the goods, if you will, and I was swing all that to me.
I want that stuff.
I'm the oldest Holcomb of the next generation.
There you go.
And so I was I'll take all that stuff. Let me get it. But it's something along those lines. Went back to, I can't remember what state it was. It may have even been Georgia. It was either Georgia, South Carolina, or North Carolina. One of those three. I don't think it was North Carolina because I would have definitely remembered that because I just figured this out since I've lived here when she passed. But it was some descendant between Sir John D. Holcomb and us was a guy that was in those same types of meetings. Mm-hmm. I can't remember.
There is a Holcomb in South Carolina that was pretty prominent in the Civil War as well.
Oh, really?
There was actually there was Holcomb's Legion.
Really?
You had and a legion defined in the Civil War is you have infantry, cavalry, artillery all fighting together.
Okay.
So yeah, check out Holcomb's Legion.
I will.
South Carolina.
Man, you're blowing my mind. That's crazy. That is really crazy. I'll have to hit my dad at my uncle and check that stuff out and see what they have to say.
Could be family, could be related. Who
Yeah,
knows?
it could be. There's just not a lot. It's not like Smith or like
Smith, Thurr Jones.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Young.
Yeah,
There's quite a few of us too.
yeah, here and there, scattered about.
Yeah, it's like the 19th or 20th most common surname in Scotland now. Is
Interesting.
Young. Yeah, number one I think is like Smith or Jones.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few of those around.
Interesting. Yeah, we definitely have some Irish tinges.
Mm-hmm.
A little orangish here from
There you
time
go.
to time.
Yeah,
But
I've got the same.
yeah,
Irish, English, Scottish is most of my ancestry too. Yeah.
very cool.
So
Yeah, I've
been
got,
to England, been to Ireland, going to Scotland in April,
nice.
May.
I saw like since in my my time here in town, I think I've seen like your pictures there, like at the Guinness.
Yeah, I went to
Really
Ireland for my honeymoon last year.
Nice.
Yeah, that was great. Amanda had never been, and I had been twice.
Okay.
And so I knew it kind of. Hey, I know what we should. I know what we can pass up, and I know what we should see, and I know there's things I haven't seen that I want to. So we're going to do that too.
Yeah, you kind of like, all right, we can skip these things.
Yeah.
Here's the things that I like.
It's kind of touristy. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We
the
had a
actual
great
room.
time. We had a great time.
That's awesome.
Ireland is a wonderful country. I highly recommend. If you haven't been, go.
Okay.
It's the most I've ever felt at home without being at home, if that makes any sense at all.
Really? Yeah, no, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Man, I have so much stuff I need to go home and research right now. I can't even like think of the.
So that's
next
what
thing to
happens when you
ask.
talk to a historian.
Yeah, it blows your mind.
You're like,
Whoa,
oh, no
man.
way.
Yeah, no doubt.
So here's something else for you. Second largest Civil War battle in the state of North Carolina was fought here.
Okay.
Wyse Fork.
Okay. Yeah.
Battle of Wyse Fork, second largest Civil War battle in the state. Bentonville's number one, and that's Johnston County.
Okay.
Wyse Fork's number two as far as numbers of men engaged
Okay.
in the fight.
Is that the area that is somewhat in the news right now with the?
Battlefield preservation. Yeah, with the new
Yeah,
bypass coming in. Yes.
So what is that like for someone that's not from here, and not saying that this is my sentiment, but if someone, because disclaimer, huge history fan, but like for someone that would be like, it's a field, man, what's the big deal? Why does that matter from a historical context?
Well, I think there's two things. First of all, there's only one place where that happened.
Right.
And once it's gone, it's gone. Once you build a house, or once you build a parking lot, or you build a Hardee's on top of a battlefield, that's it. Future generations can't come and say, hey, this is where this happened. Well, you can say it, but you sure can't envision it.
It's much different.
It's hard to say when you're standing looking at a parking lot that, oh, hey, there was a stone wall here and there was a home here that was used as a hospital, and men died there, and it's like, oh, they died in parking lot number 2 at Space 5.
Yeah, like at D7 over there by the drive-through.
It really just negates some of the understanding, I think, of the history. And secondly, there are still artifacts out there.
It's very true.
They're still pulling up bullets and belts and buttons and all sorts of things that were left behind almost 160 years ago now when they were doing the fighting. And you think about, there are people who come from all over the country who had ancestors, who were just talking about ancestry and genealogy, whose ancestors fought here. And they want to understand more about it. What was it like for them? What did they do? Where did they go? What would they have seen? You put an interstate in the middle of it, or an interchange, that's gone.
Yeah.
It's like the old saying about land. They ain't making any more of it.
That's true.
And battlefield land is the same way. You ain't making any more of it. What you got is what you got.
Yeah, especially like in our, at least to this point in history, like the rarity of battles being fought on American soil. I mean, it's not like a big, other than the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, that's literally been it for like 250 years.
That's all you got, unless you want to count, Pearl Harbor for World War II.
True.
So, that's really all you got.
That's true too. Yeah.
So, I think, it's important to preserve our past, so we can understand it better.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot going on. You know, obviously, 160 years later, what happened in that war is still with us in many ways. And I think that, you know, if you're going to understand it better, that you have to preserve it. You have to preserve the land. You have to preserve, I think, the monuments, to understand what was going on and what the mindset was. There's a good quote, and not exactly how it goes, but it's something like, people are easily manipulated when you destroy their history.
Yeah. Makes sense.
You know, and I really believe that. It's one of the reasons I got into this field.
Gotcha.
To better understand us, to better understand our state, our country. You know, without understanding the past, it's hard to understand where you want to go.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's like if like today's current age decides that they don't want to think about those things, that's fine. You don't have to talk about it.
Right.
But I think we owe it to the people that haven't been born yet to give them the option as to whether or not they want to partake in learning about something or not. And the more that we go through and like eliminate things and erase things and wash them away, like what kind of technology is going to come out in the next 150 years that could be used on a place like a battlefield to find even more stuff? Well, once it's concreted over, it's done.
Right. It's gone.
Over.
It's done.
It is done.
You know, and I think we also owe it to those who were born and are now gone, to understand their stories and what they went through. You know, just like all of us, they came into the world kicking, screaming, and crying, and not understanding what was going on. And I think we do people in the past a huge disservice by judging them by today's standards.
I totally agree on that. Yeah. Yep.
Because what was acceptable 50 years ago isn't acceptable now.
Right. Yeah, 30.
10. I mean, 10. If you really want to,
dude,
yesterday.
I'm telling you, it's like people are getting pulled back on their Facebooks from 2009 and 10.
So,
it's like, man, you're like, oh, I can't believe you said that. It's like, dude, it was a whole different world then. What do you mean?
Exactly right. Just like it was a whole different world 160 years ago.
Yeah.
Or almost 250 years ago now. We're coming up very, very quickly on the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution.
Which is super cool, like that we're going to be around for that. Like that's a cool, hopefully.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, all of us and just
because we're looking at 150 years ago was 1773.
Yeah.
So in
250, but
250, and so in 3 years. For the 4th of July, it'll be the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence.
It's going to be awesome.
That's going to be a party.
It's going to be a cool time. Hopefully, we're allowed to blow it out.
Let's hope so. I want to shoot out some fireworks for that.
I'm telling you, you'd think like, what are those shows? What are those shows going to look like? Like all that fun stuff. No, that's really interesting to think about. Yeah,
it's a big anniversary coming.
That was slipping up on me, man. I didn't. I hadn't really put together how close.
And I think the state is really recognizing that. They've got a 250th committee that I'm a part of. I'm on a committee to try to put events together and celebrations and anniversaries and things like the Halifax Resolves, which were huge. It came out in April, May 1776, and basically almost came out calling for independence before they did it in Philadelphia.
Gotcha.
And Halifax State Historic Site, wonderful historic site. There are 26 or 27 historic sites now that are fall under the department that I'm a part of, Natural and Cultural Resources, all across the state. We're fortunate we have 2 right here in town.
Which is crazy, it's freaking awesome.
But you've got Bentonville, it's pretty close by. You've got Aycock Birthplace, which is in Fremont, North Carolina, just north of Goldsboro. You got State Capitol. You got all sorts of things in this area. Halifax, Edenton, Bath, Somerset Plantation, which is a really cool place to go. You got Brunswick Town, Fort Anderson, Fort Fisher. All these things are within 2 hours or less drive, and the folks that I work with are professionals. They know their stuff, and they would welcome you all with open arms.
Oh,
so
for sure. The Fort Fisher spot, like
Fisher's cool.
Fort Fisher is awesome. If you guys have not been to Fort Fisher, shame on you. Go ahead and take off a Friday and just
Pure
go down,
Beach.
like, yeah, dude, I love it down there.
Yeah. They're building a brand new visitor center. It's going to be ready in time for their 160th. The 160th Fort Fisher is going to be 2025.
Okay.
So it'll be open and ready by then.
So
they're building it now. Brand new visitor center at the fort.
So like that one that's on the right there when you come in right now
It's going to go away.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, they're building a brand new one.
That's awesome. Dude, I'm telling you, Fort Fisher is one of my favorite places to go in the whole state. Like as soon as we like want to take a day and go somewhere, we go right there because they have the aquarium.
Yeah, that's right.
They've got the 4x4 beach.
Yes.
And they have all the cool historical stuff.
Absolutely.
And they've got Carolina Beach and all the things to do there. So like you can you can go to Carolina Beach, get some donuts, walk on that little boardwalk thing, and have like the I wouldn't say the Myrtle Beach experience because you get all of the
There's no Chinese spy balloon to shoot down them.
That's true.
That happened in Myrtle. Even the Chinese spy balloon couldn't get out of Myrtle without getting shot.
That's funny, dude. That's funny. It gives you the good touristy thing that you would want without fear of being shot.
Right,
like
sure. Yeah, without
By the way,
without
just
the attitude of Myrtle.
Yeah, I hate Myrtle Beach, man. It's like I call it like dirtier Daytona.
Dirty Myrtle.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm not from here, so I wouldn't have known that, but yeah, that's funny.
That's what I've heard.
Did you see? Slight side note. Did you see the Goodyear blimp at the Daytona 500?
Yeah, don't shoot. I saw it. I saw the picture of it. It was
That
great.
is brilliant marketing.
It was awesome.
Bravo from a marketing person.
That's right.
I loved it. We've got our own little. You can't see it because it's in the reflection, but we got a spy
Oh
balloon
yeah,
too.
yeah, you do.
So the first episode that we had that I filmed after the Chinese spy balloon, I had got this light in.
Nice.
It's the Jesse Harris. For those of you at home that are really like nerding out on stuff, go watch the episode I did with Jesse Harrison, and you'll see I put that light perfectly in the glare right over our heads, because it looks kind of like a spy balloon. It's just like a little fun, subtle,
just a little hint,
little nerdery.
Yeah, why not?
But great. No, man, yeah, Fort Fisher is awesome. That whole like Curry Beach and Carolina and all that down there is really sweet. So what exactly? I don't know anything of the actual history of why that's a cool spot, other than the fact that I can drive my truck on the beach, and if I drive 2 hours and it rains, we just go to the aquarium.
Right.
So it gives you like, and then like worst case too, you can also catch that little, the ferry over to Southport.
Southport, yeah, sure.
Southport's awesome too.
Southport's a neat town.
Very slept
on.
Yeah,
it's all really neat. And I would say next time you're down there, check out Fort Fisher, or check out Brunswick Town, Fort Anderson.
Okay.
It's on the other side of the Cape Fear, so it's on the same side as Southport.
Oh, cool, yes.
And you can hit it as you're like driving. If you're driving Southport, like back to Leland, you can hit it. It's right on the way. It's right next to the Orton Plantation.
Okay. Yeah, I got a friend that lives in like Bolivia Springs.
Okay.
That Bolivia area, like slightly in where they had the lake where the dam got taken out and it drained and all that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, this is actually Brunswick Town, Fort Anderson is right on the river.
Okay, cool.
So it's just on the opposite side of the river that Fisher is.
Sweet.
So, Fort Fisher was they started construction in 1862, so the first full year of the war, and they built it to protect the Port of Wilmington and blockade runners that were trying to get past the Union blockade that had been set up to prevent supplies from coming in and out of the South. And it's an earthen fort, but it was very, very well constructed. Had a lot of different heavy guns. Fired at more than a few U.S. Navy ships that got a little too close.
I feel like there's like a lot of that stuff still there. Like, are those big? I don't know the term for them, but like the big guns or cannons that are there, are those like actually legit?
There's a couple there that were, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if they're originals or they're reproductions like the originals, but they still fire guns down there. You still fire them. Yeah. There were 2 assaults on Fort Fisher. One was like Christmas 1864. It was disastrous. Really? Just did not go well at all. The guns at Fisher, the soldiers at Fisher just mowed down the attackers. Really? And they had to retreat and back to their ships. They came back about 3 weeks later with a vengeance. And
learned a little bit.
I think the fleet that came back was 3 times the size of the fleet that attacked it the first time. They had several thousand ground troops, including U.S. colored troops, and they assaulted Fisher, and they took it. In January, it fell.
Really? Okay.
And then Wilmington fell by February of 65, and then Wyse Fork is March of 65, right back here. So bringing it right back home.
Nice. Oh, I like that. Very well done. Very well done. I like that a bunch. Man, so much stuff.
So much history here.
Yeah, a ton. I'm like going through my.
What else you got for me?
I don't know, dude. You're blowing my mind. I don't know what else to say. I heard a little bit.
Your wife's going to be so mad. You're going to be like up reading on your phone until like, midnight. She'll be like, what are you doing?
Well, she'll actually like this because I'll be like willing to share. I'll be like,
oh, okay.
This.
Guess what?
Yeah, she'll probably get into it a little bit.
That's cool.
Just depends on the day. But if not, I'll just save it for like another night. And she'll be down.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm a nerd for history stuff too. So last night I was like laying in bed and I was just like trying to fall asleep. And I was like, and I saw like this really, I knew it as soon as I saw what it was, but it was this baseball stadium that was in Columbus that it was called Cooper Stadium.
Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, Columbus, Ohio. It was like, and this is.
I grew up in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, dude, that's freaking funny. Yeah, you were like, wait a minute.
I was like, what?
Yeah, the other Columbus.
I know the stadium in Columbus, Georgia. It's called Golden Park.
Golden Park.
Yeah.
But yeah, this. It
was actually minor league for the Indians. This was.
No doubt.
This was, I think, either high A and that was low A, or that was high A and this was low A. But people went from Kinston to Columbus in the Indians organization for decades.
And you didn't even know that you were going to end up here.
Oh, I did not know I was going to end up here. But when I found out it was Kinston, I was like, why is that so? Hey, that's another minor league team for them. So it was just kind of odd.
World.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So. Man,
sorry.
Cool.
Anyway, so you found a cool stadium.
So no, very cool. Like very similar story. So like I grew up in Columbus, and there was a little they had a little ballpark in downtown. It wasn't quite downtown. It was like the west side a little bit, or Southgate. I think the west siders would say it was not the west side. It was Southgate, but it was the west side.
Okay.
And so anyway, it's called Cooper Stadium, and they had the AAA club for the Yankees through the '90s.
Oh, okay.
Probably like 70s through the 90s, early 2000s.
So you would have got some like Bernie Williams and Posada and things like that playing, right?
Dude, so I remember vividly being at a game. I was like 7 or 8, and Jeter.
Oh, yeah.
Jeter, Posada, and Rivera were all in that game. Oh,
yeah. That's cool.
AAA. Yeah.
That's
cool. I remember being like,
right on the cusp.
Because my dad's like, this guy's supposed to be really good. This guy's supposed to be good. And I just remember him like telling me and being like, you're like 7 or 8, like what the hell do you know? You're like, oh yeah, they're really good. They're obviously good. There's lights and there's all those people that paid to come and watch them.
And they're in AAA ball.
Yeah, so I'm like learning about all this stuff. And we saw Darryl Strawberry came through on like a little rehab
assignment.
Yeah, like literal rehab assignment.
Yeah,
this was after the Coke days. Yeah, he was on a legit rehab assignment, more for his life than for baseball at that point.
That's true.
But I remember seeing Deion Sanders play there.
Yeah, and, I saw Deion play because I'm a Braves fan. So.
Oh, sweet, perfect.
Yeah.
So this dude, I remember watching little digest or a little slide from the history in the baseball
we're
history.
Going off into baseball.
Yeah, a little nerdery here, but I remember like watching Deion Sanders hits like a pop fly into like outfield.
Yeah.
The dude he just takes off.
Yeah.
Rounds first, almost hits the freaking grass. That's how far he swings it around first. Comes around second, goes behind the shortstop, and then they caught the ball.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
it was right after was it like the fifth and a half where they come through and they like redo all the dirt. He was the first batter up. So like the tracks were his tracks. And it was like, my dad was like, dude, he freaking about hit the grass in the outfield both times.
He made the All-Star game and the Pro Bowl in the same season.
Yes.
You'll never see that again.
No. Like Bo 2.0.
Yeah. Bo was
serious.
As an Auburn guy, Bo's the man. So
Bo is legit.
Bo knows.
Yes.
Bo knows.
Oh, God. Anyway,
Yep.
Man, we have more cool stuff to talk about
Good
than
stuff.
I thought we did.
Yeah.
But anywho, I was scrolling last night and I saw the stadium shut down in 2007, and they still haven't knocked it all the way down to the ground. Some company had bought it. They were going to put like a racetrack in there. They're going to try and reuse some of the stands. And so when they had bought it, they knocked down a lot of it, but they left the third baseline stands up. They were like, we're going to use that as part of the grandstand for the racetrack.
Okay.
So something race park. You probably look it up. When I knew that never happened, they all went bankrupt.
2008, probably.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's all like got the grass growing up. There's a chain link fence. All the windows up in the clubhouse or the whatever they're called were all like boarded up. Press boxes.
Yeah.
They were all boarded up, and then so it's like.
But you remember seeing games there?
I remember like legitimately. So I saw this picture and I didn't read anything of it, and because I wasn't really on Facebook when I was in Ohio because no one there uses it. Instagram in the other. So when I moved here, I was like, oh, I got to like figure out what my password is and like do this Facebook thing so I can see where the food specials are. And
that's important.
It's very important. And the drink specials
Food's
too.
important.
So I was like, scrolling and I saw it and I was like, oh my God. And I immediately, like, my eyes went right to where I remember sitting with my dad when we like caught a ball once. And I was like, oh shit, dude. Like, I was so gassed. So it's like midnight. I'm like, nah, my dad's probably asleep, but I like sent it to him anyway. And he goes, oh, really cool. He goes, Cooper Stadium. And I didn't send him any of the stuff. It was just this crappy picture of like what it's left. And it was taken like 2 weeks ago. And I said, and he was like, oh, Cooper Stadium. And I said, yeah. I said, I can tell, I didn't like hit it with my pen and send it to him. But I was like, I remember, I can point out the seats we were sitting in, man, where that ball went up and that guy had his hands and your hands were under his. And then like the dude at the last minute was like, it's cold as hell. I'm good. And then it hit my dad in the hands and stuff. And, you know, it was just like a really interesting like thing, but it's like, it's crazy how much of those like random things, I think I was like 7, 8 years old. Yeah. And I remember, I just saw like a random picture and I was like, oh my gosh, I went right back to it. And
somewhere in the mind vault.
Yeah. Nerdery stuff. And I sent it to him and he was like, I have not thought about that thought in a really long time. And he's like, I'm like all the way back to it right now. But it's like, it's interesting because who would have thought that stadium not being destroyed down to the ground 15 years ago when they left, an image of it from 2 weeks ago
would spark that
memories for for two people just randomly.
But if they tore it all down and made it into a parking lot, you wouldn't have had it.
Wouldn't have had that. And it's so like, you know, like I'm not that old, I don't think yet. I'm like mid-30s, but like I'm starting to get to this stuff where I'm like
mid-40s, so I understand.
And I was like, man, I'm like, so he was like, yeah, that's really cool. And I was like, yeah, I know, like you're kind of making me cry right now. I'm getting old.
I saw a thing today and just kind of made me chuckle. It was like, yeah, it's true. It said, I'm old enough to remember dial-up internet, but still young enough to rage quit on a website that won't load in 5 seconds.
Amen, dude.
I was like, I feel attacked. That's totally me.
That is funny. Yeah. That's what, man, like, what will we think of social media? What will historians in 100 years have to say about social media?
You know, one of the things, too, is that less and less actual letters are being written. So, you know, for like my grandparents' generation, you had letters that like my granddad wrote home from World War II. You know, I could read his letters. I could read his, you know, what he was thinking. Or my grandmother's letters in between her and her sister. You know, we could read those because we've still got them. How many of those have been lost, though? Yeah. You know, how many letters are lost? With the internet, it's forever. Yeah. Unless you take it down or it gets deleted. Yeah. Like I can't find my MySpace stuff anymore. You know, that's probably a good thing, honestly.
Yeah, you're like,
yes, that was my 20s.
Yeah, you had like Limp Bizkit in your top four.
Yeah. Actually, my top four were like Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller and Artie Shaw, and I love the old 40s music.
Really? Nice,
yeah, my granddad got me into it. I was like, this is really good.
Nice. Yeah.
So I'll
you listen to it?
I'll still listen to Dave Matthews. I'll still listen. I mean, my stuff's eclectic. Yeah, it's a wide variety.
I'm a little bit of everything as well. But like, did you like listen? I like listening to music in the form for its era. Like throw in stuff that was released in vinyl, like listening to it on vinyl on a vinyl player that's from that time too.
That would have been really cool.
A whole different like level.
That would have been really cool. But I like got my granddad into like I got him a small MP3 player, and so I put like 100 big band songs on it, and I gave it to him, and he's like, "This is awesome. This is great." He could just carry it around anywhere and listen to his big band whenever he wanted to.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I miss all four of my grandparents are now deceased, and I miss them very much.
Yeah, I feel that.
So I feel that. You know, that's I mean, again, that's your personal connection. That's your family connection to the past. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember when 9/11 happened, and I called my granddad, and he hadn't turned on the TV yet. And I said, "You got to turn it on." He said, "Why?" I said, I think this is my generation's Pearl Harbor."
Yeah, I would agree.
You know, for my grandparents, it was Pearl Harbor. For my parents' generation, you know, my dad was 13 when JFK was shot.
I was gonna say, yep.
So for our parents, it's that JFK moment, JFK, Vietnam, that kind of MLK. You know, maybe where were you when that happened? Everybody can remember. And for us, it's 9/11. Mm-hmm. I just hope for our kids, it's nothing nearly like that. Yeah, sure. And that's a fear that you carry around.
You never know. You know, anytime.
They say history repeats itself. I don't think it repeats itself, but going back to music, you can see the same melodies. Mm-hmm. You know, you can see some of the same things happening, just different words, same tune.
Yep.
And that's what I think of, when you look at patterns in history, and they're definitely there.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Everything is somewhat cyclical for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And erasing things brings them to light faster. I feel like eliminating the, not the buzz, but like just the eyes that are on stuff. Like it's amazing how quickly humans revert back to things, like as a overall culture of all humans in the world. Like it's just the more that you can see what happened and what went wrong, the better you can adjust.
Hopefully you can learn from it.
Yeah, I mean, there's bad actors that obviously are like, sweet, there's a whole playbook of how to be a terrorist, like in different terms or words. But like, yeah, it's the same too. Is like, so I've been thinking a bunch. That's why. So the thing that I like about social media is exactly it's along the lines of what you said. Is my kids eventually, as long as like LinkedIn doesn't get deleted someday, they'll be able to go back. Like my grandkids, if I never even like meet them, if I pass away and then my kids have kids, they could actually go back and be like, here's like so many hours of videos of like your grandfather or great grandfather, and like you can like,
which would be, I would love to have those of my grandfather or great grandfather. I would love to have them, because really all I've got, I mean, I've got some VHS stuff, and of course you have the memories. Yeah. And they say that no one's ever truly dead if you remember them. Yeah. Which I kind of take to heart. Yeah. I'll always remember them, hopefully. But you're right. But there's a kicker to that. There's something you have to remember about that too. When we read our grandparents' private letters, I think they're probably more truthful and more honest than you'll see a social media post. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because we post, for the most part, what we want other people to see and think of us. Absolutely. Whereas a private letter or a private email even, is going to show you more character, more truthful, more to the, you're right, more to the heart than you would some social media post that is status update. Exactly. So I think that historians need to take into account bias, if that makes any sense, and who the intended audience is. It's something you learn in grad school when you're doing research. Okay, you can use it as a primary source. Who's the audience? Because if it's a newspaper, you may not want to trust everything you read in black and white, because oftentimes newspapers will sensationalize. They will make it bigger. They will add facts that they're not sure are facts. It's, some soldier said this, and so that's what I'm writing, even though it could not be true at all. Yeah, the embellishment is very real. Exactly so. And in not only in print media, I think you have embellishment. You have it I think you have it in the media period today. You have 100%. Nothing but embellishment. And, I'm an expert and I think this. Well, tomorrow he thinks it becomes, this is the story, when in fact it never happened. It was an opinion of an opinion. Right, exactly so. And I think that one of the things that I think history needs to teach better is the difference between fact and opinion. The difference between fact and emotion. And the fact that, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. We all know that. It happened. Why? And that's when you get it into history. History is more than dates and people. History is stories. History is cause and effect, which people don't understand either to some point. Yeah. Reasons and reasoning. Right. Yeah. And there are motivations behind what were those motivations. And I think that's when you get into a real interesting history, is understanding those motivations. Why did they think they could do this? What would it accomplish? Yeah, what was the goal of the action? Right. And for sure. Did they accomplish their goals? Did they not? I think that's something you look at. June 6, 1944, D-Day. Hey, great, we invaded Europe, trying to break Hitler's hold on Fortress Europe. Why? And look into the reasoning behind it. Again, I think that story is what makes history interesting. Yeah. What was the goal of it all? Yeah. That's very interesting. I've been, something I've been trying to do a little bit lately, and sometimes I tell them and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll take my dad's phone calls through this. Oh, really?
just record it.
Oh yeah.
Like when I'm having, I didn't even tell him about this, so he won't get mad because he doesn't have Facebook, so he won't even know this video exists. But the other day I was like in a real mood, and like my dad's like my go-to guy on stuff because like we went through some stuff, so it just makes it easy. Like he put me in wrestling when I was like 7 and 8, and like drove me all over and made me crazy. So sometimes he'd be like, "Will you quit being so intense?" And I'm like, "You made me like this.
That's
like,
your fault.
You freaking trained me to be like this crazy person." And so and he'll always be like, "Crazy is not the right word." And I was like, "I know, it's just the word that I associate with
passionate,
being passionate." Yes, exactly. So from time to time, when I'm like really feeling in my vibes and stuff, I'll just hit him up, and you know, it's like your dad, so you like know what you can say to get him to go on something, and you know what path he's gonna take through things, but I don't have it recorded. And the biggest like thing I look back on and I hate is like when I moved here at 19. My grandma came down one time. My grandma was like, my dad's mom was like, the one, man. Like,
yeah, mine was too.
The one.
The same.
And she came down one time. We were sitting over there at Sugar Hill eating lunch. Parrott's General Store was here. And I looked at her and I was like, she was like, what are you know, what's the goal of all this down here? And da-da-da-da. I said, well, you know, doing this and this and this. And I said, man, that spot right over there in the corner. I was like, I want that so bad. Like, isn't it so tight? Like, look at the bricks on the corner, how they're turned at a 45, and they do a little stagger pattern. I was like, that's just, like, unique. Like, there's so much history in that corner right there. I don't know why. I don't know if it's good history, bad history. I wasn't here for any of it, but, like, I just like that spot. So, anyway, we go around. That was, like, November of 19. My birthday is 3/11, so March 11th. She calls, leaves me a voicemail, you know, hey, happy birthday, da-da-da-da. And maybe like the 18th or 19th, my voicemail was full. So I went through my voicemail, and easiest thing to do was just hit erase all. So I erased all my voicemails. And like 4 days later, she died. And I was like, oh my God, I had a freaking voicemail of my grandma's voice, like saying, hey, Zach, happy birthday, like for the last time, basically. And I like freaking deleted it.
You didn't know it would be the last time.
You would never have known. But because I had like this tiny little amount of storage in my voicemail, I like made that mistake. And so now that I like have this little bit, and like you have so much storage on things, and audio doesn't take a lot. No. So like I hit my dad up.
A lot less than it used to.
Way less. Absolutely. And dude, I'll hit him up and just like run the call through here and be like, record. And it's just like,
just so you have it. One
of these days when I'm like really feeling about a certain way and certain things, I like categorize them. I can go back and be like, bam, and just literally play it all back through.
Yeah. Like, and you're like,
that makes me emotional.
And that's what I needed.
Super tight. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's cool that we can do that though.
It is.
We have the technology, and I feel like a lot of people aren't using it for that. Like you can record anything on your phone. You got all this crap on your phone. Right. Like, are you recording conversations you're having with loved ones? Because you never know when.
Taking pictures.
Yeah, pictures and all that is really cool. I'm big on like the sound of the voice. Because you can look at pictures all day long, but they can't talk to you.
Right.
Yeah, video. They can't talk to you.
That's
and
true.
You can't hear, like hearing the voice of someone, like you can text your person all day long and then they call you and it's like,
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, text my wife. But hearing her voice,
it's different.
That makes it real, you know.
Yeah, it fulfills the emotion. It brings it full circle, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
I agree.
I'm a nerd like that, man. Anyhow, I was chatting with him late last night, man. We sent him that stuff. It was super duper cool, but
that's great. That reminds me, I need to call my dad. I hadn't talked to my dad in a while. So.
Yeah, man. Record it one of these times.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I just wanted to like chat. Let's just go.
Let's talk.
Let's just talk about like random stories, but like I'm just gonna like hit this button, but don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then you have it, man.
I actually, a couple years ago for Father's Day, I had a list. It was like 20 things. It was like 20 things to ask your dad.
Ooh.
And it was a really good list. It was like, you know, what do you remember most about high school? You know, did you play sports? What did you like, you know? Who do you admire? Who is your hero? What do you think of people? You know, in general, how did you get into your profession? What drove you to do this? What was your motivation? Tell us about when you met Mom. You know, all those stories that, you know, when you lose them, you won't have access to anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like
it's not on the internet.
Right.
It's
and I probably should have recorded it, but I didn't. But my stepmom was there. My aunt was there, his sister. My wife was there, not my wife at the time, but she was there and I was there. And it was a really good, probably 45-minute conversation. And it really was like, okay, so my dad's hero was his dad.
That's cool.
Which I didn't know.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. And I said, Dad, what do you think about people in general? They're scum.
They're all terrible.
They're all terrible. That was his reply. I was like, okay, I get
That's
it.
so funny,
I get it. So
no, that's cool.
yeah. So look for lists like that. They're out there. 20, 25 things to ask your parents or ask your father or something like that. I want to sit down and do it with my mom someday too. My parents been divorced for 40 years. Yeah. But would love to do it with her too, and just kind of get her feedback.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm gonna do that, and then I'll check with you.
Let me know how it
after
goes.
I do mine. I'll be like, hey, did you do yours?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll hold you accountable.
That's right. Hold me to the fire.
We'll get
that's
all.
right.
We'll get both of them.
Sounds
for both
good.
of us.
Well, speaking of baseball,
Freedom class.
Freedom Classic.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Navy Air Force.
Yeah. Very exciting. Great weather for the Friday
Well,
for the
hopefully.
game that's going on right now. Because hopefully I'll have this up tomorrow.
Yeah, Friday would be great. Saturday doesn't look so good. Sunday could be okay though.
Yeah.
A little cooler.
Yeah.
But I remember going to Freedom Classics where it was like 36.
Ugh.
And you had to know that when they're fouling balls off their shins or they get one low on the handle and your hands buzz. Oh, you had to know that hurt.
Yeah, dude.
Hurt.
I'm telling you. Yeah, you got to get the if you're out there, you're a baseball player, you got those kids that are playing baseball, you got to get the little baseball thumb pro. Mm-hmm. Shameless self-promotion. I'm going to hit it real quick. Out of America, we kind of...
Are you spearheading that?
We don't, but the molds that are used to create a lot of those products are actually made by us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That is
Kinda
neat.
different sizes and stuff. And
Yeah.
they do they make the actual part, but like some of the molds and stuff come from us.
That's
kind of
neat.
interesting. 3D printed molds, and then bam, that's how they're making a lot of those
3D
products.
printing is so crazy.
It's pretty neat, man.
They're actually starting in our department now. They're starting to 3D scan artifacts.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like one of the most commonly requested 3D scans is a musket.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm hoping they've got a portable system that they can come and scan the boat, what's left of the boat,
Yes.
and get that as a 3D scan. That would be so cool.
Yeah, they can actually just bring it in and set it up in the room in a couple of different setups.
Yep,
and
that's
then
exactly what they
they'll
have.
scan it, and then they can overlay the individual scans over overlapping data, and then boom, it gives you the full conglomerate.
I'm
It's
hoping they can do
very
that.
tight.
I hope they can do that.
Dude, let me know whenever that comes to town because I'll be super on that. So like I started doing I started working for my wife's parents in 2012, like in November of 2012, and that was like one of the first things that they had me learn was they bought some Faro arm laser scanner, and dude, it was amazing, like all the crazy stuff that it can pick up and things like that. But at that time, they had just started putting out those ones where you could just put them in a room and set it, hit a
And
button,
let it go.
leave, come back the next day, hit it
Right.
again, and kind of move it around and do all that overlapping. It's the neatest stuff. Creating digital twins of this, archaeological, these artifacts and all these different things. I mean, it kind of goes right there too of like, well, what happens if, I don't want to say it on
Something
official,
happens.
but like what happens if something happens to that space?
Right. No, you're
and
right.
everything inside of it is all of a sudden gone.
Right. You've
The
got.
only way you can have it is digitally at that point.
Well, fortunately, we have a safe
Nice.
because the visitor center used to be a bank.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got the original safe from the bank
That's cool.
that we have the combination to.
Nice.
And
it actually works. Yeah.
It actually works. And
That's cool. Is it like the one at the O'Neill? Have you seen that?
very similar.
Nice.
Very similar. Not quite as ornate. That one is
Yeah,
quite
it's
a bit.
very beautiful. Yeah.
And that one dates, I think, probably from the 20s or the 30s. I think the one we have is from the 60s or 70s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like yellow shag carpet on the inside. And
Oh, super sexy. Yeah. You gotta do like a lock-in night. Yeah.
Oh my God. We've done Boy Scout nights and Trail Life group nights overnight at the museum before.
That would be.
So
That'd be cool.
you get like night at the museum, except our mannequins don't come alive. So unfortunately,
Or do that.
you'll have to find out.
That'd be cool. I gotta get over there, man.
Yeah.
You're one of the people that we met the day that we came down before we moved. You probably don't remember, like July 3rd, 2019, man. We came down to town and Queen Street was all ripped up and all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah,
and,
when they were redoing Queen.
Yeah, man.
You came over to the museum.
We popped in.
Yeah.
And you snuck us back there and showed us real quick. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And I just haven't made it back.
Got to come
over
back.
since.
Got to come see it.
I
Now that all the exhibits are done.
Yes. Very cool. Very cool. Man, I'm telling you. So, fun little story that you might not remember. I'm sure you're going to remember this. The pigeon coup that happened.
Oh, yeah. That was the anniversary was a couple days ago. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Trying to get that stupid pigeon out. And the problem is his cousins have come back.
They're back.
I guess either earlier this week or late last week. No, I think it was Tuesday. Dave had to get a pigeon out of the visitor center.
It's too funny.
We still don't know exactly how they're getting in.
Gotcha.
But once they get in, it's like they fall and they can't get back out the hole that they came in.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And so you hear, ooh, ooh, and you hear
a little scratching pattern.
You hear them walking on the roof, on the ceiling tiles.
Oh yeah, like the drop ceiling.
And just like the pop out foam ceiling that you have the squares.
Yeah, dropping. Yeah.
And so we'll have to like move a couple of squares and try to put some water down or something like that. And when they fall, it's like, okay, then you got to shut doors and close them off and try to get them. And there's, oh my God.
Dude, I remember watching you like
try to chase that pigeon.
Chronicalizing.
Oh yeah.
The pigeon in the thing. I showed like everyone. I was like sending it to people back home. I was like, look at this guy. This dude is hilarious. Yeah, it was chasing that sucker around. You're like, no.
This is not part of my job description.
Well, you're preserving history.
Right. Other job duties as required. Yeah. That's what it falls
I just
under.
love that. You should go back and share those when they come across your memories because I remember it vividly and I was like, oh my God, it's
the great pigeon debacle.
The coup.
Yes.
There was like some cooing going on like in the nation at that time or somewhere in the world, and then you had that going on.
The pigeon coup.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and coup is in cooing. Yeah. So you've got kind of a double entendre there for sure.
I thought it was fun. Kind of a wordsmith from time to time. I'm uneducated, but I like to think punly as well too. But anywho. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on here. This was
I've enjoyed
hilarious. Tons of fun.
Good job.
You know a ton of random, awesome stuff that's very
I know a ton of random stuff. I don't know how awesome it is, but I know a ton of random stuff. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Sure. There are some subjects I can talk on without notes for a long, long time.
I like it.
So other things, I'm just like, I need notes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, next time you think of something really cool, or we got like a cool like historical date coming up, on something fun around town and stuff, or like some history things, you definitely have to let me know so we can do this again.
Sounds good.
And my wife was really pissed at me for not doing this down there with the ship in the back.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can do that next.
Framed it up really
maybe we can do that. Come a future podcast.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool.
We do have some cool things coming up at the museum. March 11th is going to
birthday.
It's. Well, what we're doing two things on March 11th.
Really?
One, we have a Wyse Fork battlefield tour that our support group is doing. And I think there's only maybe 4 tickets left for that. And it's like $10.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a battlefield guide, and you get a bus, and it'll take you around to where all the action was happening, and you'll understand why it's important to preserve Wyse Fork.
Sweet.
That's the first thing. Second thing is, at the museum itself, we're doing a program on women in military history.
Oh, very cool.
So it's like Women's History Month is March. So we'll be talking about the role of women in American military history.
Awesome.
There'll be a program going on there most of the day. So that's what we got coming up in March. And then
is that like a Saturday or something?
It is.
Oh, man.
Your birthday's on Saturday. Those are the best.
Dude, I think I might come out and hang out with you all day.
You should.
Man, that's so cool.
And then in April, on April 1st, actually, at the Caswell Memorial, we're going to have a program on colonial gardening.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we got some good stuff coming up. You can check us out facebook.com/CSS News.
Sweet. Maybe I'll put it in there.
That'd be great.
Dude, awesome stuff. I really appreciate you coming out, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for hooking us up. We'll see you at the Freedom Classic this weekend for sure. At least one of the days. I think tomorrow might be the game, like Friday.
I think tomorrow is going to be take me out to the ball game. Let's do it.
I'm excited. I can't wait because I'm already ready for the Wood Ducks to come back. I'm somewhat interested in baseball.
Yeah.
It's numbers, right?
It is.
And it's, in my opinion, the richest history of any sport that we still play.
It absolutely is. And I love it too. I love the game.
Awesome, dude. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for all checking this episode of Kicking It Without. This one was episode 39. I'm Zac Holcomb. This was Matt Young. Really appreciate it. We'll catch up with you on episode 40.